NFL Live on the air and following this timeline, 9:59 a.m. Eastern, the Cincinnati Bengals, on the heels of releasing safety George Iloka, released 9-year veteran defensive tackle Chris Baker. 11:42 a.m., Ravens tight end and first-round pick Hayden Hurst is expected to miss 3 to 4 weeks after having surgery on a stress fracture in his foot, as first reported by NFL Network and confirmed by ESPN. That's a bummer. As we welcome you in, say hi. Welcome to NFL Live here with Dan Graziano, Tim Hasselbeck, Victor Cruz. I'm Susie Colbert. Now, this is going to be fun because week 3 of the preseason almost feels like the regular season. Almost.
Did you watch that game last night?
I stayed till the end.
Man, boy, you are
I just wanted to see some points, some real points. Anyway, just like a Friday edition of NFL Live during the regular season, we're going to hit all 16 games, beginning with that fabulous matchup last night. Eagles and Browns. Really, the star of the show was before the game. Carson Wentz, he looked really good. We'll get to that in a bit. Nick Foles, he started first quarter. Eagles backed up on their own 4-yard line. He slips in the end zone. He makes it to Sheldon Gibson for a gain of 18, but Tim, the play would be reviewed.
And they end up getting it right. Myles Garrett gets to him as Nick Foles trips himself, touches him while he's down. It is a safety.
Second quarter, 2nd and 10 from their own 25. Foles looking deep, but he is intercepted by Brian Body Calhoun.
Yeah, and really just not a good job by Nick Foles. When there's a safety in the middle of the field and you're trying to throw a go route, you need to hold him longer than he does, and that's why this ball's picked.
Under 2 minutes left in the half, 2nd and goal. Foles flush from the pocket and fires into traffic, intercepted by Jamie Collins.
Another decision by Nick that wasn't a great one there. Gets fooled a little bit as it's a drop 8 coverage by Cleveland, and Nick tries to force it to Zach Ertz.
Here's Doug Peterson after the game on his team's performance.
First of all, I'm disappointed in the offense. I don't want to single out one player, so don't put this all on Nick. I'm disappointed in the offense. And it's not what you want, obviously, in the third preseason week. When you don't score and you play the way you play on offense, it's and I'm being an offensive guy, I'm not very jovial. The offense just didn't do enough, obviously, and they understand it, and I wanted to make sure they heard it from me, and we just move on.
I'm just making mistakes. I have to go look at the film. For me, it's just getting back into rhythm, playing ball. We had an opportunity to win the day. That's on me. I made too many mistakes at critical times that hurt us as a team. So if I clean that up, we win this game.
So the Eagles offense, hit by a ton of injury, hasn't been able to get it going with Foles under center this preseason. In 10 drives over the last 2 games with Foles at quarterback, the Eagles have 5 turnovers and haven't managed to score a single point. And overall, he's been sacked 6 times this preseason, thrown 2 interceptions, and lost 2 fumbles. But what a treat to have the Super Bowl winning head coach of the Eagles here with us to break it down, Doug Peterson. Doug, I did stay with you to the bitter end last night, hoping to see your offense score some points. I mean, clearly there's a lot to evaluate here. But what would you say is priority 1 of where your offense is right now in the preseason?
Well, I think, Susie, priority 1 is to get the guys that are missing healthy. We've got a number of guys right now that have missed the last couple of games, and so we don't have a full complement of our starters that are playing. But we got a couple of weeks to get guys healthy, and should be pretty much close to full strength come September 6th.
Let's get to one player specifically. Erin Andrews was working the sideline for Fox last night. So this was her quote after speaking with you about Nick Foles at the half. "I've seen enough. It's very disappointing. He was calm before this game. I thought he'd settle in. Not the case. I'm done." And then Nick admitted after the game he just doesn't feel like himself. What do you feel like you need to focus on with Nick, especially this week and going forward?
Well, I think we just got to get back to some of the things we did, at the end of the season. One of the things we don't do a whole lot of in preseason is game plan, and so it's sort of, I don't want to say it hurts, but it might just sort of limit the guys a little bit offensively, and so we got to get back to doing what Nick does best, and we haven't run any of our RPOs and in the run game, and those are all things we work on in practice, and he does a nice job there. But we just got to get back to some of the basics, some of the fundamentals that that we did at the end of the season last year that allowed Nick to be successful on the football field.
So how does Nick's play, or if he has struggled, how does that impact your game plan for week 4 of the preseason? Because you do have 3 less days than the rest of the league to get ready for week 1.
Yeah, going into week 4 of the preseason, obviously the starters are just they're gonna focus on a little bit on Atlanta and start watching some tape and get themselves ready to go and won't play in the last game. But from here it's just it's about their preparation and once we get to through this 4th game, it's game on.
Now, Carson Wentz may have stolen the show last night in the pregame, and then Fox showed his warm-up routine. Troy Aikman was right behind him, watching him, even when he slipped, and then actually got up and laughed that off, which was good. Probably made everybody nervous, but that was kind of a good moment. He has not been medically cleared, but once he gets that clear from the doctors, then what?
Well, once he gets that clearance, we have to make a decision if he's going to be the guy. And listen, I became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years ago, and the first thing we did was draft Carson Wentz, and so he and I are in this thing together, and he's obviously the franchise quarterback and the face of the Eagles, and he's done an outstanding job even through injury up to this point. So. We get that clearance, and whenever he's ready to go, he's ready to go, and we're just waiting for that time.
Right, and a lot of it is ifs, obviously, but if he is cleared before kickoff, week 1 against Atlanta, what's the timetable in your mind of how many days you would need or to make that decision between Nick or Carson?
Well, I think you'd want a full week. I mean, I think you'd have to get all the practice reps with the ones and get a full complement of the game plan and all of that. So, it couldn't be on a Friday or a Saturday. I mean, this would have to be, after a game or before the week started or something like that, so that he could get his mind right, and get himself prepared to start a football game. And that's no easy task, but that's something we'll face when that time comes.
So we are also fortunate to be able to get to talk to you. You are on a book tour. Your book is called Fearless, How an Underdog Becomes a Champion. So I'm just wondering, what's the life lesson when all odds are against you, not just overcoming it, but being successful in life?
I think the biggest thing is just you can't let fear overcome you, take you, and because fear can take you to a dark place, and it's part of my life where, I just don't allow that to creep into my mind. And it's something that you just got to sort of just trudge through. And there are going to be some struggles. There are going to be some tough times, whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, a team, and you just continue to fight every single day. And so that's kind of the theme of the book, and just overcoming those obstacles in your life that allowed us last year to overcome to win a championship. It's a powerful message, and so I'm excited for people to read it, obviously, and how to overcome your fears just a little bit. But it's something that our team went through, and I'm proud of the guys for doing that.
Something everyone can learn from, for sure. I look forward to reading the book, and best of luck, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Susie.
I was kind of surprised that he said it would take that long for Carson Wentz to get in gear. I think in his rookie season, they kind of threw him to the fire. Are you buying it?
I think it's a bit of coach speak. I think it's one of these things you don't send a message to your players that they can just get ready in 1 week or miss practice time and still be okay. I think you have to have that message, even with someone like Carson Wentz. I just really believe in listening to Doug that in knowing what Carson did throughout OTAs, the fact that he's practicing in 11-on-11 drills, which is important for people to realize, is not a controlled environment. You have people going full speed, rushing the passer. I understand they're not going to hit the quarterback, but guys trip, end up on the ground. I think the fact that he is doing that means that he's going to start week 1. And then I think on top of it, because it hasn't gone great for Nick so far in the preseason, I think that if he was close, maybe had Nick been playing great, it would change things a little bit. Maybe give them more patience. But I think between where Carson is, where he feels like he is, I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that he starts week 1.
Peterson still insists, though, he has to be medically cleared. As soon as the doctors say yes, then everybody starts talking, but they do need that.
I would just say that if you're cleared to do 11-on-11 drills, which again, and that's why I emphasize this, is not a controlled environment, I think you're pretty much cleared.
He hasn't been cleared for contact. That's my understanding. So these are 11-on-11 drills, but not full padded ones. Right. And obviously you can't hit the quarterback even if.
And there's nothing that's going to happen. There's nothing happening between now and week 1.
Right. There's nothing. You can't put him in contact unless you put him in the fourth preseason game. There's no way they're going to do that. So, yeah. I mean, look. All along they've said the same thing. When he's ready, he'll play. It's not going to depend on how Nick Foles plays in the preseason. If they're mismanaging their team if they let that leak in here, because Carson Wentz is too important to them long term. So they've stuck to that. I believe they will stick to that. I think if he's ready to go, he wants to play, they'll play him. And if he's not, I don't think it matters that Nick Foles was struggling against the Browns last night. I think they'll put him in the game.
Yeah, and with the multitude of injuries that they have, they're going to need Carson Wentz in that week 1 opener to be there and be that pillar that they need to get everybody on the same page and get some points up on that board, hopefully.
And keep in mind, too, right now, a really solid offensive line isn't intact. You would think week 1, that offensive line is together, then everybody's feeling better.
Some of the receivers back, the running back, sure.
Right, because last night, the Browns.
It was bad.
Destroyed their offensive line. So let's take a look at the Browns. Let's go offense on the Browns here. You got to see a lot of the new talent, like Carlos Hyde. He's been looking really good this preseason. Gets around, speed down the sideline, 33-yard run for Hyde. Next play, Nick Chubb takes the handoff. He bounces off the defender and breaks to the open field. He gets inside the 15, 21 yards for the rookie. Oh, he's looking pretty good for that backfield.
Yeah.
Play action here. Rod Taylor rolls out and passes to David Njoku, who leaps and gets the first down. And the Browns offense seems to be rolling, although remember how many points they put on the board. Trying to punch it in. 4th and goal. And Taylor's flush from the pocket. The most important part here is how he went down, and Dan, that he was in pain.
Yeah, he landed on his hand, come out of the game, went to the locker room, had it examined. There's an NFL Network report out there that he dislocated his left pinky, but he came back in the game, and the conversations you had last night and this morning the people I've talked to there, they say they think he's going to be fine.
While he was out briefly, Baker Mayfield came in, hangs in the pocket here, finds Rashard Higgins for a gain of 20. Baker didn't have the greatest outing last night. Started the 4th quarter, and he played a lot the whole second half. 2nd and 9, Mayfield, great pass up the seam to C.J. Board for a gain of 19. And then later in the drive, 3rd and 4, Mayfield throws over the middle, but this time he's intercepted. And it nearly goes the distance. And
that's a heck of a tackle by
Mayfield, too. Look at this. I mean, he took a shot. They took him into the tent, but he'd be cleared. He was fine. He was 8 of 12 for 76 yards passing. I'd really like to just talk about the defense. Oh, my gosh. But it just seems like everything is on track.
Well, everything seems. I mean, they barely survived having their top 2 quarterbacks get hurt. I mean, this is an argument for abolishing the preseason, quite honestly. But and by the way, you ran the ball down to the 1-yard line, and then you throw it 4 times from the 1 to try and get in there, and you get your quarterback hurt on the 4th one. So that might be a lesson there. But look, I mean, the defense. Look, talking to people with the Browns organization off of that game last night, they're saying, well, the defense looked good. 4 takeaways in the first half. They only had 13 last year, a league low. So they're encouraged by that, the performance of Myles Garrett. They feel like they have some real good players on that side of the ball.
I think the best thing that happened for Cleveland in this game as it relates to Baker Mayfield is that you got a real live situation that you can't practice or script. Starter has to leave the game. You then get thrown into action and have to perform. He actually comes in and makes a nice throw. The very next play, he doesn't get out to the running back on a handoff. So I think what happens is, as a backup quarterback sometimes, which is going to be new for Baker, how you approach the game is different, and you can't manufacture that type of thing in practice. It's scripted, and oftentimes in the preseason games, it's scripted. Hey, you play the first half. The other guy's going to play the second half. I think that's actually the best thing they can take away from it for Baker.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good mental test for Baker, kind of coming in off kilter. He's a rookie. He's just trying to figure things out, and he gets out there and has his ups and downs, made some good throws, made some bad decisions, but it was good for him mentally, and there'll be some things to coach up film-wise once he gets in that meeting room.
And there'll be a fun game to watch week 4, which usually doesn't mean too much because you figure Baker's going to get a ton of time. It's like they just want him in there grinding, don't you think?
As long as they score more than 5 points, I'm in.
At least.
All right, so that's the Browns and the Eagles. 15 more games.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
The Giants face the Jets at MetLife Stadium in one of the 6 preseason games tonight. All eyes will be on third overall pick Sam Darnold, who could make his second start this preseason after working with the first team against the Redskins last week. Josina Anderson is at MetLife Stadium. She has both sides covered. So let's start with OBJ. How do you believe his contract situation will impact his playing time tonight?
Very good question, Susie. Well, first of all, I strongly do not believe that Odell Beckham Jr. Is expected to play tonight unless there is some real increase in nudging pressure from the team at the last minute to just get out there for a few plays. And you can take that as it basically sounds. Right now, we know that Odell Beckham Jr. has been participating in team drills more so than a lot of people would have expected at this time. But the fact remains, Susie, that contract is unsigned. Has there been progress? Yes, but listen to me clearly. Progress is a relative term. It's not just about breaking salary records, but doing so at a margin that is reflective of what the player feels is his true value. And also, Susie, keeping in mind that the wide receiver market has barely moved since Larry Fitzgerald and Calvin Johnson in 2011 and 2012 when both players were averaging 16.1 and 16.2 a year. And also keeping in mind that Sammy Watkins is in there averaging $16 million a year, albeit on a free agent deal. So all of those things, and not that those are just the only contract metrics, are being kept in mind right now.
Wow. How about Saquon Barkley? Will we see him tonight?
Well, very interesting, Susie, because I talked to a few sources today that said that Pat Shurmur made it very clear to the players that he wants anybody who is not hurt to play today. And that was stressed multiple times. So the question is, how much is Saquon hurt? Well, we know he did not play against the Lions, and he just participated in individual drills on Wednesday. But I think many would agree that testing a hamstring is not always the smart idea. You can take a look at LaShawn McCoy as a recent example for messing with a finicky hamstring. So I guess my point is that the Giants have a decision to make.
Okay. On the Jet side, we know from last Thursday's game on ESPN that Todd Bowles is not exactly forthcoming with his quarterback rotation. But what are you hearing?
Well, I would expect Sam Darnold to get the start tonight. That is my understanding. As you know, he started the last game, and for the Jets to follow the template that they did with Christian Hackenberg last year in the second and third preseason game. After that, I expect Teddy Bridgewater to pick up the work. You know, right now he has the 74 completion percentage, 212 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception in the preseason, and those numbers are slightly better right now than Sam Darnold. I'm also understanding that the team feels like they've seen what they need to see from Josh McCown. However, all 3 quarterbacks are still in it for the competition at starter. And lastly, Susie, I talked to linebacker Avery Williamson to ask him, who do you think is in the lead at quarterback right now? He said, if you're asking him, all quarterbacks are doing great. However, Teddy Bridgewater's knowledge and comfort level is sticking out right now. Susie, back to you.
Oh, all so intriguing. Thanks, Josina. Enjoy the game. MetLife decked out in green for this one as they are the home
How you like that?
Giants and Jets. So let's start with Sam Darnold. And what are you looking for tonight? What do you need to see?
Well, I think the exciting thing, if Josina's right there, that he's going to start, I think it tells you a lot about how the Jets feel he's done so far and how ready he maybe is to become the starter. So what am I looking for? For him to do more of the same. He's been outstanding this preseason. His composure, how quickly the balls come out, the decision-making. I think the best thing you can say about a quarterback is that he makes the guys around him better. And I think we've seen evidence of that from Sam Darnold so far this preseason, which is exactly what the Jets need out of that spot.
What makes Josina's head so interesting is, 98% of the time you start week 3, you're the team starter. But so where does that leave Teddy Bridgewater? Like she said, he's probably playing the best.
Well, I think they want to see Sam Darnold with the number 1 offense and against a number 1 defense. And I think that's, this is another test for him. He's passed them all so far, as Tim indicates. And I think that's where it is. Look, if you're running the Jets, you know Sam Darnold's your future. You want to find out when that's going to start. Your fans want to know when that's going to start. This is the guy they're excited about. Teddy Bridgewater, great story, but he's not the long-term quarterback for the Jets. Sam Darnold is, or he wouldn't have been the 3 pick. And so they have to find out what they have and when they can use it.
What are you looking for from the Giants?
You know what? Coaches always say that they don't make the decision on who starts and who plays and who makes the team. The players make that decision. You know what I'm looking for?
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for someone on the Giants to be Victor Cruz. What I mean by that, I'm looking for somebody. I don't care if it's a return man. I don't care. I want somebody that comes out of nowhere, undrafted, has got single-digit numbers to play in this game and just wake up everybody in New York to say, wait a second, 6 catches, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Again, listen, maybe it's Cody Latimer in the return game. Maybe it's a linebacker. Maybe it's somebody in the secondary. We know who the stars are in this team, but who else is going to step up? Give me somebody to do what Victor Cruz did.
I want to see that. So what should the mentality be in Game 3?
I think the mentality is just to come in and be smooth. You want to come in and show that you guys are ready, show that the starters are ready for week 1, and be smooth and efficient and get out of there unscathed, hopefully.
No one's going to be that smooth.
Yeah, talk about smooth.
Ever.
That's why they're still playing preseason games, because of you.
Yeah, exactly.
That number 3, man. That was
kind of sweet, though, wasn't it?
I like it.
So much fun. But now he's sitting here. It's like time flies. It's unbelievable.
Make us feel old.
Aaron Rodgers won't be throwing to Jordy Nelson for the first time in over a decade. Nelson was released by the Packers in March, signed with the Raiders. During his time in Green Bay, he and Rodgers connected for the most touchdowns by any quarterback-receiver combo in team history. Here's the Packers quarterback talking about his former favorite target.
We still talk a bunch. It'll be different for sure. He said he has his own pregame routine, so we can't play catch before the game, so I'm a little disappointed by that. But which means I won't be spinning any type of football with him in an end zone. So he's changed. He's definitely he's a new guy.
Has Randall picked up the slack enough to replace 87 with the ball spin?
Yeah, I think either Fam and I, the first game, I spun it by myself. I told him after that, too soon. Too soon.
Aw, Packers, Raiders. Victor, what are you watching for in this one?
I'm watching for this offense just to see. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't playing, but just to see how they look, how those receivers look, how that new offense looks, and how they're going to be consistent going up and down the field offensively.
Anything else?
Raiders, I'm looking for their defense. I mean, how do they look without Khalil Mack? What does that defense really look like? I know they just added Rogers Cromartie, but I'm interested to see how that defense looks without maybe arguably the top, rusher there in Khalil Mack.
Yeah, easily their best defensive player. Okay, Tom Brady and the Patriots travel to Carolina to play the Panthers tonight. Brady is expected to see extended action. He was impressive in his preseason debut last week against the Eagles. He completed 19 of 26 passes and threw for 172 yards with 2 touchdowns. And joining us from Charlotte, NFL Nation Patriots reporter Mike Reese. Hey, Mike, what's the plan for both teams with their starting quarterbacks tonight?
Well, Susie, we couldn't have ordered up a better day here in Charlotte for Tom Brady versus Cam Newton. Let's start with Brady. He is going to play tonight. How much Bill Belichick ultimately holds the decision there, and he's not telling us. Brady sometimes plays into the third quarter of this game. But Brady wants the work. He says he needs the work, and he got it last week. Check out this graphic that our ESPN Stats and Information group put together, highlighting how Brady's 39 snaps in the Week 2 preseason game more than doubled his output from any of the games the prior 3 years. Brady explaining because the Patriots haven't had joint practices, he really wanted that game action to feel a live pass rush. Now, as for the Panthers and Cam Newton, here's what they tell me. He is completely energized working with first-year offensive coordinator Norv Turner. They'd love to see Newton play into the third quarter of this game. But they're going to be keeping an eye on their offensive line, -3 starters. If Newton is taking a lot of hits, they won't hesitate to pull him out of the game.
Hey, Mike, also, I think Brady wants to play a lot because there's going to be 2 rookies in the Carolina secondary. Really have a good time with that. All right, so the conversation here is about playing, how much in week 3. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing at all. Tom Brady wants to play into the third. What's your philosophy?
I think that it's important to play guys in the preseason. I do. Even Tom Brady, and I think even Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger and Drew Brees. And the reason that you do, I think, is that most guys want that work, and you can't play football scared. I understand these games don't count, but if you're going out there thinking, oh, I might get hurt, listen, it could happen week 1, and those guys aren't playing necessarily just for week 1. They're playing to play in the postseason. I just think that, you get into these scenarios where you think, well, it'd be great to rest this guy. Well, where do you stop and where do you draw the line? And I've been in too many locker rooms where guys are like, well, wait a second. He's sitting, but I'm out there playing 40 plays. Am I not as valuable as the next guy? And so I just think that if you're going to play the starters, play them all together. And when you decide to pull them out, pull them out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a matter of what your team looks like, what your injury situation looks like, what those areas look like for you as a football team. But obviously, certain starters just aren't going to play. We see it mostly with quarterbacks, starting guys. But it all depends on how your team is shaping out leading up to that week.
Teams back off their starting running backs a lot now. You see that a lot. In Atlanta, Devontae Freeman's not going to play a preseason game, and neither is Julio Jones. It looks like Todd Gurley's not going to play at all in the preseason, maybe not Jared Goff. So there are teams that are definitely trending that way in terms of asking and answering the question, does this player need this in order to get ready? And if they answer it in the negative, does Todd Gurley need a preseason game in order to get ready for the season? The LA Rams believe the answer to that question is no. And there you go. It's not just injury risk, but it's exposure to, wear and tear. And, every play a running back has, goes into the bank in terms of wearing him down.
I think there's a mental aspect of it. Tom Brady's going to go out there and play. Okay, so if you're a young offensive lineman or an inexperienced offensive lineman, which New England has, you need to find out, can that guy go handle the pressure of protecting Tom Brady? Can he deal with that? Let me ask you another way. Can Tom Brady trust these guys that he knows might not really be ready yet? There is a lot besides just the pure X's and O's of it, of actually it's a team sport, and it's important to trust and rely and have accountability to your teammates. That's part of it.
Because he has a lot of work to do with his receiving core. He hasn't quite built up that trust with his receiving core there, but the way he described it is not just about the game. It was the whole week that they treated this week like a real game week, and mostly to get the rookies ready for what the rhythm of the week is like, what practices are like, and Brady is a part of that too.
So I think it comes down to Tim's point, how many questions you need to answer. Maybe a team, and I go back to the Rams example because it's front and center. Maybe they feel like, we're bringing back the same group. We know how this works. We don't have those kinds of questions. Whereas Tom Brady's got some new receivers he's trying to break in. You mentioned what they're doing on the offensive line. So it's very team specific. But as you see these teams start scheduling more of these joint practices, Mike referenced that the Patriots haven't had them. They see that in some way as a substitute for that game action and a more controlled one that makes them feel a little better about things.
And it's key for the Patriots receivers specifically because they're letting guys go. They're trying to figure out what their receiving core is going to look like. Right. And it's important for Tom Brady to build some type of continuity with them.
Right. And as Mike Reese mentioned, too, about the Panthers, determining how long Cam is in there because of injuries on the offensive line. You have to be
that's
careful
a big deal there.
Okay, so on to Broncos and Redskins. The Broncos head to Washington, where the biggest storyline could be the debut of Redskins running back Adrian Peterson, who signed with the team earlier this week. Case Keenum has only completed 9 of his 17 passes this preseason, entering his third game with the Broncos. NFL Nation Redskins reporter John Keim is at FedEx Field. So with all the injuries that the Redskins have suffered this preseason, especially at running back, what's the game plan for AD playing tonight?
Well, Susie, the expectation is he's going to get a lot of work in the first half with the Redskins starters. How many carries? I'm going to guess around the 6, 7, 8 range. Now, there are 4 things the Redskins want to see from Peterson tonight. 1, his vision, how that fits in the Redskins system. 2, his explosiveness. Does he still have that? 3, how he handles back-to-back carries. And then 4, the stamina at the end of a long drive. That's a lot of questions you get answered in one half of one preseason game. So I kind of put my little reporter's hat on, and I asked some people here, Is that enough time? And the answer I got back from a few people resoundingly is absolutely. The Redskins definitely feel they're going to get a lot of their questions answered tonight by Peterson.
A lot different than the days of we don't see Adrian Peterson taking a snap in the preseason. Okay, thanks, John. Enjoy the game. Now, it's not like quarterbacks aren't always showcased, but it seems like the Saturday games really set up quite nicely to do a Saturday quarterback showcase or spotlight or something. But let's start with Marcus Mariota, who led the Titans to the playoffs last year, and Ben Roethlisberger in his 100th season.
A lot of it's been made about Marcus and his footwork and him becoming an improved passer. It's a new offense there. He's been through a lot of change. I think really what you want to see from Marcus is how he has progressed inside the pocket. And I think the ball is going to come out quickly in Tennessee. They do have some playmakers on the perimeter. That'll be a good thing to see. And for Ben Roethlisberger, depending on how much he plays, will we see some of this no huddle that he wants to do with some young wide receivers that are certainly stepping up and playing well. A lot of talk about Vance McDonald and how he can help that offense. So Ben Roethlisberger, always fun to play with the weapons that they have there in Pittsburgh.
Okay, on to two second-year quarterbacks. I think Patrick Mahomes threw 68 yards in the air.
I heard something about that.
That was pretty impressive. And, of course, Mitchell Trubisky in his second year has a whole bunch of new weapons to get used to. So what are we looking forward to there?
Yeah, with Patrick Mahomes, I'm just looking for that strong arm. Like you said, I want to see that on display. Obviously, we know Andy Reid's going to have a good game plan for this young man to perform. And obviously, the third preseason game, he's going to get a lot of playing time. And we want to see that arm. We want to see it be accurate and perform down the field. And then on the flip side of that, with Mitchell Trubisky, he's got some new weapons to play with down there in Chicago. And I want to see it. I want to see those receivers. I want to see the running back. I want to see J.H. get off and play and ball like we're used to seeing him play. And I'm excited to see this year Mitchell Trubisky kind of taking that step forward as a second-year guy.
Okay, let's move on to Houston at the Rams. Deshaun Watson, his first 7 games, basically were record-breaking. They were historic. And we're not sure if we're going to see Jared Goff.
Well, we'll start with Deshaun. Yeah, that 7-game sample last year was like this thrilling lightning storm that's over almost before it starts. They want a more steady approach to this season with Deshaun Watson and putting in plays that they know he's comfortable with, as opposed to just throwing a game plan together on the fly as they were doing last year. So it should look a little more refined this year. And Goff, I don't think we're going to see Jared Goff. It would surprise me if he plays, but having been to their camp and talking to Sean McVay, I know that they're working with him on the next stage of his development, which for them is greater control and greater responsibility in the offense than what they gave him last year. Everything went well last year, but they feel like he can handle even more as they move along, and they just want to make sure he continues to be that, what McVay calls an extension of our coaching staff.
Tim, Atlanta and Jacksonville. Matt Ryan has turned into an Iron Man, 131 straight starts, and Blake Bortles, we know, coming off a playoff season.
Yeah, and even with it being the preseason, I think this presents a nice little challenge for both quarterbacks. Matt Ryan and that Atlanta offense, they'll get to say, hey, look, we're going to go play probably the best defense in football, albeit for not an entire game. But it's a good test for you, especially when you have backups that are going to be playing, because we're not going to see Julio, we're not going to see Freeman. And so it'll be a nice opportunity for guys to play with Matt Ryan against a very good defense. And then when you flip it and you look at Blake Bortles, there were stretches last year where he played great. There were stretches where he didn't. And I think that because they have a good defense, there's pressure on him to continue to improve. And the Atlanta Falcons have a fast defense. And so I think the challenge there is for Blake Bortles to kind of continue to develop, get better, and instill some confidence in his teammates that he can get the job done.
This one is fun, given the relationship here. Breeze and Rivers. Remember when Rivers was the backup?
Former teammates, that's right.
That's pretty cool. Now they're both in top 6 all-time.
Coached against each other because their kids have played against each other in flag football.
Against
That's pretty important, too, also.
Yeah, they can actually make their own team with the number of kids that they have. All right, what do you think of this matchup?
I love this matchup. Obviously, two living legends, if you will. But Drew Brees, I want to start with him. Obviously, this team, I got them picked to win the division and be a Super Bowl contending team. And a lot of that's predicated on number 9 right there, Drew Brees, and being consistent and being obviously one of the most accurate quarterbacks in this league. And then on the other side, in Phillip Rivers, I just want to see him kind of get into a good start, get into a flow. They started the season 0-4 last year. I want to see him come out and kind of put his stamp on this game and get a good drive, get the thing going a little bit, and perform well.
All right, we have kind of opposite ends of the spectrum here. Although injury plays a part in Flacco and Tannehill, he missed the season over there. And Joe Flacco, he's just like, he wants to prove something. He's kind of been on fire this preseason.
And he wasn't healthy last year either, Flacco. And I think, everybody's talked about the drafting of Lamar Jackson has kind of lit a fire under him. Talking to people around that team, they say, look, he's fired up, but, they haven't been to the playoffs in 3 years. He knows they need to win. Obviously, he's aware that Jackson's there, and he's healthy now. So there's a lot of reasons that they're optimistic that Flacco will, in fact, be better this year than what we've seen the last couple of years, and boy, do they need him to be. And then Ryan Tannehill in Miami, the coaching staff, very, very high on him down there. They talk about how much, command he has of the huddle, command he has of the offense, and, Jarvis Landry out the door there to Cleveland. They believe they've built a wide receiver core around Tannehill that fits what they want to do and what he can do best. So we'll see. I mean, it's time to show it, obviously, for Ryan Tannehill.
Garoppolo and Luck, as Jimmy continues to establish himself, and Luck is a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the interesting thing here is there's so much buzz about Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, people kind of already thrusting him into like the top quarterbacks in the league kind of conversation. And it's a very small sample size. I will say this. I believe he has a tendency to hold on to the football for too long, and that can get you in trouble as a quarterback. I want to see him play on rhythm and in schedule. That's what Kyle Shanahan really wants out of that position. He does a good job of designing guys open, and so it's really about playing on rhythm in that type of offense. And then for Andrew Luck, I think we've seen some of it this preseason where he's taken a hit. He's got up, and he hasn't looked like it's bothered him. I think the confidence of just being out there, being in kind of live bullet situations, getting hit, having to attack all areas of the field with that repaired shoulder in terms of where you're, throwing the football. And so I think just more of the same from Andrew Luck from what we've seen so far this preseason.
But we're still waiting for him to maybe
just cut it loose.
Cut it loose. Mm-hmm. And then on the other end of that's where Richard Sherman comes in, because it shouldn't be lost in this game that he makes his debut for the Niners.
Yeah, and I know Niner Nation is excited about having this guy healthy and having him back in the fold. I obviously faced him a handful of times throughout my career. So to see him back is good, but we'll see how that Achilles holds up, to see if he can play and be the old Richard Sherman that we're used to seeing, shutting guys down and defending balls and PBU and everything that comes his way.
We have to wait till week 13 to see him play Seattle, which could
really?
be...
We're patient.
Kind of emotional. Yeah, that can be fun. Cousins and the Vikings host the Seahawks as Minnesota's offense tries to get back on track. Cousins only completed 3 of 8 passes for 12 yards last week against the Jags after he was a perfect 4 for 4 with a touchdown in his Vikings debut against the Broncos. With more on tonight's game, we welcome in NFL Nation Vikings reporter Courtney Cronin. So, Courtney, with the Vikings offense struggling last week and that loss to Jacksonville, what's Cousins' current comfort level with this offense?
Well, Susie, by my estimation, Kirk has been asked probably 15,000 times when it's all going to come together for him in the Vikings offense. And that's something that every single time he doesn't get annoyed with that question. He answers it as honestly as he can. The other day brought up some advice that he received from Tom Brady in 2015. He asked him, how long is it going to take before it clicks? Brady's answer to Kirk, it is an ongoing process. And Cousins knows that within this offense, that's probably going to be the case for quite some time. He did say that he hopes to get a little bit more action tonight, be able to string some plays together, because it was pretty hard to do that when the offense only was together. The first team offense was only together for 4 series against Jacksonville last week. But right now, it's also about working some of the ancillary stuff out to make sure that everything's good to go week 1. That includes the sideline communication with offensive coordinator John DeFilippo and making sure he's comfortable with his cadence and his offensive line, making sure come week 1, everything goes off without a hitch.
And also, we haven't seen running back Dalvin Cook take a live game snap in 328 days as he recovers from knee surgery. Will we get to see him tonight?
Well, the expectation is that Dalvin will appear in week 3 of the preseason, the dress rehearsal where most of the starters are going to play a little bit more than they had in the first 2 weeks. But from Dalvin, expect a brief cameo, I'm told. They ran the ball considerably well with the state of their offensive line the last 2 weeks, so there's no real reason to rush him out here. But Mike Zimmer did say a few weeks ago that he would get reps in the preseason, and tonight should be the night for that.
Hey, Courtney, a lot to keep our eye on tonight. It's the Minnesota side. What about, Tim, the Seahawks side? What are you looking for from that wide receiving core?
Well, listen, I think Seattle, believe it or not, is really excited about some of the wide receivers they have. They added Jerron Brown in the offseason. Tyler Lockett's a guy that they think can do a lot for them. Amara Darboh is a young player that they think has skills really, down the field. And if you think about what happened to Russell Wilson a year ago, he was their entire offense. They had no run game, and I think they were looking for more out of their wide receivers. And so I think you look at an opportunity for some of these young guys at the wide receiver position to step up, as well as Chris Carson to do some things in the run game to maybe take some of the pressure off of Russell Wilson to do everything.
Man, much of this team is almost kind of unrecognizable.
Yeah,
and of course, we've heard a lot about the secondary, all the changes. That's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, it's a lot to overcome, especially when guys like Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman, obviously with the 49ers now, and Earl Thomas with his contract disputes. That's something that takes a toll on any defense when you lose those pivotal marquee guys on your team that have been there, which feels like 100 years. You know what I mean? So I'm interested to see how that comes together for them, how that continuity kind of builds throughout the preseason and flows over into the regular season, pending on if they're able to get Earl Thomas back in the fold.
Yeah, glass half full, I guess, would say, look at, it's a fresh start.
Yeah.
Fresh start out there in Seattle. All right, we'll see how that goes. On to the Lions at the Bucks. Tim, what will you be watching for tonight?
Well, I want the Lions to, can we get a sack, please? I mean, it's a defense that I think people feel like is pretty good. A defensive-minded head coach, and I think they're the only team in the NFL that doesn't have a sack this preseason. I don't care if it comes in the fourth quarter from somebody. Let's see this Lions defense get after somebody. And then for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we all know the situation with Jameis Winston means that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to start the season. He's had moments in his career where he's played well enough to make people believe that he's a starter. There's a lot of pressure on him. I think it's a good dress rehearsal, if you will, for him to get ready for the start of the year.
And this press coverage, I don't know if we can call it breaking news, but it is an important update on the Bucs game from reporter Jenna Lane, who tweeted, "Another heads up for tonight. The Bucs are no longer accepting cash for parking. It's credit card or mobile payment."
This is news you can use. I mean, if you're going to the Bucs game tonight, that's very important.
It's important for all those people that don't like to carry cash. And by the way, I don't have a single babysitter that'll take cash. They want it to be Venmo'd. So hopefully you've got that ability. And thank you, Jenna Lane, for the info.
Yeah. So let's tackle the Sunday games. Bills rookie Josh Allen will get his first start of the preseason when the Bengals visit Buffalo on Sunday. Allen has completed 56% of his passes with 2 touchdowns this preseason as he competes for the starting job with Nathan Peterman and A.J. McCarron. What do you think Josh has to do tonight to seal the deal on this, to win the job?
I think just continue to do what he's done. I think Josh Allen has been the biggest surprise of these rookie quarterbacks. I don't think it's close. He's been that good, and I think it's been surprising to how far along he is to the coaching staff there in Buffalo. And when you look at the difference when he is on the field from the other 2 quarterbacks, I think it's easily noticed. His physical tools, this play right here that we're watching is incredible. His physical tools are at a completely different level than Nathan Peterman or A.J. McCarron. And so I think if it's even remotely close, which in my opinion it is not, I think you just go ahead and play him, start him, and you get him the live work experience that is so good for so many young quarterbacks.
Yeah, this is big time for him. He's got to treat this game like it's week 1. He has to come in here and do more of the same, come in with that same level of confidence, and show it out there on the field, which is what he's been doing thus far.
Because they say dress rehearsal, so for him the whole week needs to feel like what it would feel like if he was starting week 1. What's interesting is they really did, they didn't want him to have
They wanted a redshirt, but sometimes it's like, then you see it and you're like, we can't do this. We're going to play him.
And there's some fun history here with this game. Remember last year, the Bengals win eliminated the Ravens while at the same time clinching a spot for the Bills. Well, Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton and his wife JJ are going back to Buffalo Sunday to give back to the Bills fans who supported their foundation after Dalton helped end the Bills' 17-year playoff drought in Week 17. Many in $17 increments.
That's great.
It is intercepted, picked off by Jordan Poyer. That should do it here. And their fate is on the line at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore now. Dalton inches up in the pocket, throws, caught by Boyd, touchdown! Tyler Boyd on 4th and 12. The longest drought of not making the playoffs is over.
You remember that? It was so fun how that was
cool.
Played out on both sides.
Cool.
It's like the gift that keeps on giving. All right, on to the final one, on to Cardinals and Cowboys. It's the final preseason game this weekend, Sunday night. It's unclear whether Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott will play for the Cowboys, partly because the team is dealing with so many injuries to starting offensive line. All right, guys, what are you watching for here? Victor, you take the Cowboys.
If Dak does play, I'm looking for that chemistry with his receivers. Obviously, I've been well documented in saying that I don't see that big playability in those receivers. Obviously, Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley, and the rookie Gallup. You want to make sure that they're out there and they look cohesive with Dak leading the charge. And that's what I want to see. I want to see continuity. I want to see some touchdowns. I want to see some plays down the field. And I want to see Dak be Dak, even with this receiving core that he has.
I think when you look at Arizona, and I would agree with everything you said about, Dallas, and, part of what they're going to deal with in terms of guys being injured is the newness of it and then having to replace it. And then when you flip it and look at the Arizona Cardinals, it's interesting. Josh Rosen dealing with the thumb injury, and so he didn't throw at practice, and how will that affect him? And I think the one question mark that so many people had with him was, well, how durable is he? This guy, that we understand that he kind of knows how to play the position. He is a good passer. But injuries were a thing for him. And here we are before the season starts, and it's already happening. Mm-hmm. And, oh, by the way, the guy that, was in line to be the starter, his whole career has been about injuries. And so I think that's something that when you look at the Arizona Cardinals, they're going to have to find a way to navigate that, manage that, and somebody's going to have to really emerge. And, on top of that, their best player on offense, probably David Johnson, he's coming off of an injury. Exactly. So I think a lot of question marks for that football team.
And we'll be holding their breath on Sunday night,
yes.
Right?
And just to touch back on the Cowboys a little bit, it's good to see some of these young guys with the offensive line injuries that they have, to see if they have some young guys that can step up and be a protection for Dak or whoever's playing quarterback that night.
Depth.
So important.
So
very important.
We did it all 16
War of
games.
attrition, yes.
We hit all 16.
We worked it.
But there's still more to do. Press coverage direct from the New York Jets. They've got some running back news. They announced on Twitter that they have signed former Chiefs running back Charcandrick West, Kansas City cut West on Wednesday. Keep the running back theme going. Head coach Sean McVay announced Thursday that Rams running back Todd Gurley will not play this preseason. The team signed him to a record-breaking deal this offseason. Earlier in the show, we talked about the Cardinals, their quarterback situation. Press coverage now. This from John Weinfuss. Despite throwing during practice today, Cardinals rookie quarterback Josh Rosen is still day-to-day with the injured thumb. Coach Steve Wilks said today Rosen will be a game-time decision for Sunday's game at Dallas. Wilks said he wants to see how Rosen is throwing and gripping the football before he decides if Rosen will play. Okay, one last thing to do. It's a Friday. It's our challenge flags. Mm-hmm. Tim, you are up first.
I'm up first? All right. I'm going to challenge, well, that's pretty close. I'm going to challenge Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, here's the deal. Word out of Chicago is that he's doing great. Matt Nagy's excited about how he's been doing, but he hasn't really seen it so much in the preseason games. I want to see it against the Kansas City Chiefs. Mitchell Trubisky, get those Bears fans excited.
Victor.
All right, it's me. There we go. I am challenging you, Sam Darnold. Go out there and win that starting job. Go out there and perform the same way you've been performing all preseason long. Go out there and put your mark on the New York Jets and be the starting quarterback.
These contract holdouts are getting to the point where it's getting pretty serious. I'm going to challenge the Oakland Raiders.
Oh,
got it.
Nice
shot. I'm going to challenge the Oakland Raiders to get something done. Pick up the phone, get something done with Khalil Mack. You can't start the season without him. He's the one thing you have going for you on defense. It's time to get that contract done.
So I would just like to change the Raiders to the Rams and Mack to Aaron Donald. Oh, come on, Rams. Les Snead, you've done such a phenomenal job managing this roster. Let's get best player in the NFL.
It's 2 weeks to go.
Player.
2 weeks. It's time to get serious.
It's time to, and by the way, OBJ get his deal done too.
Yeah,
immediately.
Everybody get their money.
Everybody get paid like Oprah.
NFL.
6 games tonight. 7 tomorrow, 2 on Sunday.
It's almost here.
A lot of football.
Everybody be watching
almost
football.
A lot of preseason.
No, and week 3, it's the dress rehearsal. So a lot to watch for this weekend. And NFL Live back for you on Monday to break it all down.